Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today's story takes place in a facility where a single machine generated millions, internal politics mattered more than process, and management learned far too late that protecting the wrong people can bring an entire operation to its knees. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. I was fired for pointing out sabotage on a critical machine. My departure triggered an investigation that got 4 managers fired and cost the company a fortune. This whole thing went down in 2021 and wrapped up in October, and I still get that stupid grin on my face when I think about it. In January 2021, I started working for a massive American energy company at one of their European facilities. The plan handled assessment and restoration of gas turbine parts. These parts are engineered jewelry. A single blade can cost thousands new, and a turbine has hundreds or thousands of them. After years of heat and stress, parts warp. You either restore them or scrap them. Restoration costs about a quarter of producing new parts. Customers pay half to 3/4 of new pricing, and the company prints money. That steady, guaranteed income was the root of the problem. When a facility has decades of uninterrupted profit and no real competition because it's their own proprietary design, management doesn't need to be good. They just need to look good. Office politics replace competence, and people who are good at surviving meetings start running things instead of people who understand the work. I was hired in quality control to operate a 3D computer-managed measuring machine. Think precision robot mapping, turbine blades down to microscopic deviations. The machine itself wasn't hard to operate. Clamp part, load model, run program, export report, combine results into a master Excel file. Annoying but simple. Understanding the machine, however, was a different story. Only 3 people truly understood it. And then there was Vladimir, the technician who could actually fix, reprogram, calibrate, and maintain it. If Vladimir quit, the entire facility would have collapsed. Calling him in billed our department, which management hated. The most important operator was Antonio. He'd been there forever. Knew every sound, every quirk, this isn't broken, it's just dramatic behavior. Blunt, short-tempered, but honest. The guy you want around when things go wrong. Antonio and I clicked immediately. Unknown to most people, he'd accumulated enough vacation and overtime to quietly retire 2 years early. He was 63 and done. And for reasons I'm still grateful for, he decided I should replace him. So he taught me everything. Not just button pushing, but maintenance, calibration drift, error prevention, real knowledge. He trained me like a machine replacement part. That's when I noticed the real disease: clicks. This facility was a medieval court with forklifts. If you were in the right group, you were untouchable. If not, you were expendable. Credit theft, blame dumping, silent protection. I didn't care socially. The commute was brutal, nearly 2 hours each way, so my plan was simple. Do the job, go home. Enter Jake. Jake was the 4th operator, though that term was generous. He worked the machine because it was cushy. Jake was part of the clique. My manager, Manuel, department boss, Freddie, and Jake's direct boss, Boris, who was also Jake's brother. Jake worked nights for extra pay. I worked mornings. Jake was lazy, smug, rude, and completely protected. Problems started immediately. The first issue was pallet sorting. Rotary blades must be sorted by set and serial number. Written rule. Saves time, prevents mix-ups. Jake never finished sets. He'd leave 1 or 2 blades unmeasured, so the next shift had to finish. He also never compiled reports because he didn't know how. One morning, I came into chaos. Unsorted pallets everywhere. I spent 2 extra hours lifting, sorting, and measuring. When Jake arrived, I asked politely why he hadn't sorted. "I'm not doing that," he said. "It's mandatory." Not talking about it. When I said I'd escalate, he smiled. "Go ahead." So I asked Manuel if the procedure had changed. That turned into a meeting with Jake and Boris. Everyone knew I was right. Nobody wanted to admit their guy was dumping work on me. The result was a soft request that sorting be done. Jake shrugged. Strike 1. 6 weeks later came strike 2. Antonio had taught me the morning maintenance routine. One day, I moved the machine arch in manual mode and heard grinding. I stopped instantly. The stone track had a crater, 2 to 3 centimeters deep, and scratches along most of its length. That crater looked exactly like the corner of a turbine blade. Jake had worked the previous shift. I shut the machine down, called Vladimir, informed management, and documented everything. The machine was down for over a month. Backlog exploded. Jake denied everything. No consequences. Strike 2. When the machine came back online, backlog was severe. Antonio was already on his pre-retirement vacation. The other trained operators had left. It was just me and Jake. I noticed timestamp gaps in Jake's reports, 10, 15, 30 minutes between cycles with no errors logged. I asked him about it. No. 2 days later, it got worse. I came in Monday after Jake ran all weekend. 4 orders should have been done. There were 0 reports. The machine logs showed it had been running nonstop. No errors, no shutdowns. Someone had turned off the output function. Not accidentally, deliberately. We had to remeasure everything. Production stalled, money bled. And this time, Freddie, the department head, finally had enough. Of me. He stormed into my room, got in my face, and accused me of bullying coworkers. He handed me a termination letter. 2 options: apologize to Jake and admit fault, or be fired. I didn't argue. The letter allowed immediate termination by mutual agreement if I signed. So I did everything by the book. Cleaned my workspace, backed up files to the designated server folder, the one marked unsearchable, wiped my laptop per policy, signed the termination, printed copies. When I handed Freddie the equipment and letter, his smug smile vanished. "You're terminated," I said calmly. "Policy requires equipment return. Have a fine day." I handed Manuel his equipment too. His face went pale. He realized instantly that I was the only one left who knew how to maintain that machine. I requested a full exit search at security and received signed confirmation I left with nothing. Manuel called me nonstop. I ignored it until evening. When I finally answered, he said we could sort this out. I laughed once. "I'll come back for triple pay, a solid contract, and a written apology from Freddie." "That's unreasonable." "So is firing the bottleneck holder," I replied, and hung up. The fallout was inevitable. The machine started failing constantly. Vladimir got overwhelmed, backlog spread, other departments ran out of work, penalty fees stacked up. Eventually, it reached national leadership. A month later, I was interviewed as part of an internal investigation. I gave everything: documentation, patterns, names. Then the dominoes fell. Jake was fired for negligence, Boris was fired, Manuel was fired. Freddie didn't just get fired, he got dragged into legal hell. The facility ended the year deep in the red. As for me, I had a new job within a week. Better boss, better commute, better life. Every once in a while, I think about Freddie's ultimatum and smile. Firing the wrong person doesn't punish them, it punishes everything they were holding together. And if your entire operation depends on one machine and one stubborn person with receipts, congratulations, you played yourself. This is what happens when organizations mistake loyalty for redundancy and politics for strategy. You didn't burn a bridge, you simply stepped off one that had been rotting for years. And our next story. Tenants stopped paying rent, sued us for toxic mold, and played the victim in court. My parents have a rental property, and for a while they had tenants who lived like they were personally offended by the concept of a trash can. It wasn't one of those "they're struggling, be patient" situations either. It was more, "why does this smell like an ashtray soaked in old soup every time we had to step inside?" Then they got a decent cash windfall. Suddenly they were talking about new beginnings and fresh starts. And I honestly thought, great, take your fresh start somewhere that isn't my parents' house. They told us they were moving out soon. We said, fine, we'll do the paperwork. No hard feelings. Just go. That's when the switch flipped. Rent started showing up late or not at all, and every conversation became a complaint. The big one was mold. Not a normal, "hey, there's a damp spot, can you check it out" complaint. I mean full theatrical production. Messages at midnight, photos of random corners, dramatic voice notes about how the house was poisoning them. Then they took us to court. Yes, they stopped paying rent, kept living in the house, and sued us for unsafe living conditions. It takes a special kind of confidence to squat in someone's property and try to invoice them emotionally on your way out. We did what you're supposed to do. We hired a professional inspector, legit guy, meters, samples, the whole deal. My parents were irritated but calm. If there's a problem, we fix it, my dad said. If they're lying, we prove it. Court date comes, and they don't show. And because they don't show, the process drags. Another date gets scheduled, more delays, more we can't make it excuses. Meanwhile, they're still in the house, still not paying, still acting like we're the villains for wanting rent for the place they refuse to leave. Months go by and it turns into one of those situations where you're watching your own property being used as a free Airbnb while someone complains that the pillows aren't fluffed enough. Eventually, the judge sets a hearing they can't dodge. This time, one of them shows up. The woman comes in looking like she's auditioning for a daytime courtroom show. Puffy eyes, trembling voice, clutching tissues like they're evidence. She starts crying about how their baby is dying because of the toxic mold and how they've been begging for help and how my parents don't care if a child suffers. The judge just stares at her for a second, then leans forward and goes, "You've been living there without paying rent for over 6 months. If you genuinely believed your baby was in danger, why didn't you leave?" Silence. She tries to pivot into another sob story, but the judge isn't playing. My parents' attorney hands over the inspector's report. The mold guy had written it plainly. No significant mold issue. The air quality wasn't the problem. You know what was noted? Cigarette smoke. Heavy cigarette smoke. Enough that the inspector basically said, if this child is having breathing problems, it's far more consistent with constant smoke exposure than anything we found here. The judge looks like someone just handed him the world's dumbest puzzle and asked him to take it seriously. He flips through the report, looks back up, and says, "So you're telling the court the home is harming your child, but the professional report suggests it's your smoking that's likely aggravating the child's breathing." She tries to argue. She tries to cry harder. She tries to throw in phrases like "my rights" and "landlord responsibility" like that's a magic spell that makes rent disappear. The judge shuts it down. Case dismissed. They're ordered to pay back rent. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that night they packed a U-Haul and vanished like cockroaches when the kitchen light comes on. 6 months of screaming about how they couldn't possibly leave because they were trapped, and the second the court tells them they owe money, suddenly they can move at NASCAR pit crew speed. We thought that was the end. It wasn't. Because here's the thing. People like this can't help themselves. They always slip, and they always overshare. I kept an eye on their social media, not obsessively, just the way you watch a raccoon you've chased off your porch. You don't trust it. You just want to know if it's back in your trash. A few weeks go by, and they start posting new home content. Cute little photos of their place, shots of the baby, the living room, the front door. And then, because some people are born with an allergy to self-preservation, they tag the location on one of the posts. Bad move. I pulled up Google Earth, went straight to the tagged area, and started matching details. The street angle, the driveway shape. Then I saw it, their front door. Red, distinctive, exactly like the photo they'd posted with the caption about "peace at last." I screenshotted everything. Address, map, the post, the door. Sent it to my parents' lawyer with a note that basically said, "Guess who just handed us their new address?" They got served at their Fresh Start house. And because court orders don't care about your Instagram aesthetic, they had to pay. From what we heard later, the guy ended up selling his vintage car, the one he used to brag about online, to cover the back rent and fees. So yeah, they spent months trying to play victim while living for free, blaming mold for problems they were creating themselves and dragging my parents through. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.